In this lesson, we're going to learn about adding integers. In previous video, we learned about different types of numbers and we learned number line. And on the number line, we have negative numbers and we have a positive numbers and a zero. And if we want to put those types of a number together, we have a new name for it. We call it integers. Right? Integers can be any numbers like negative numbers or zero or a positive number. Now, since we learn types of a number, why don't we dig deep to learn more about it, to learn how to add them together, right? Um, so far, I think you guys already confident with adding positive numbers. Let's say we have 1 plus 3, just 4, right? Just and 2 plus 3 and it's just 5, right? What about this time we have two negative numbers and add them together? We have a negative 1 plus negative 2. What about that? To add them, we can first use a number line to help you to see how to add them together. So a negative number means we gotta move from 0 to the left. So but if we have a positive number, let's say 2, we gotta start from 0 and move from 0 to the right. But in this case, we want to calculate this expression, and it's a negative 1. Our first step will be starting from 0 because it is negative, so we're going to move to the left. And how many steps do we move? We move one step because the number is 1, right? So it's 1 unit. But we're not done yet. We have negative 2. So we start from here and move to the left with 2 steps. 1, 2. 2 units. And here, the final destination, and it corresponds to negative 3. So negative 3 is our solution. This is how you can tell by a graph, but it might be take long if I give you a number like 1,000 or 10,000. You just move the steps. If you want, you can, but we can learn a quicker way. We solve it algebraically. That's why we have this rule. We say adding integers with the same sign. Same sign means if we have two negative numbers, like, and add them together, or we have two positive numbers and we add it together, that means the same sign. And for this rule, it says add their absolute value. Important. Add their absolute value and the sign of the result with the same integers for the sign. Let me show you how to really to calculate it. Let's say I have negative 6 plus negative 2. So they are same sign. They are both negative. To add them, we're gonna add their absolute value. That's the first rule. Absolute value of negative 6 plus absolute value of negative 2. And remember, we just learned from the previous video, absolute value means the distance between the 0 and the number. And the quicker way to think about it is whenever you see the absolute value, just get rid of the absolute value sign and the negative. So the result will always be positive, right? Whether it's negative inside this symbol, it's always be positive. So in this case, absolute value of -6 is 6. And same thing for here is 2. And 6 plus 2 is 8. But we're not done yet. You see, the sign of result will be the same as integers, which means if we have two negative numbers, then our final result will always be negative. So it will be -8. So typically there are two steps. Just add the absolute values and then figure out the signs, whether it's negative or positive. Just that, just like that. And let's see another one. -3 plus -7. Okay, same sign. They are both negative. And we add their absolute value. And absolute value of a -3 is 3, always positive. And absolute value of a -7 is 7. 3 plus 7 is 10. But consider the sign, we have two negative numbers, so our final result would be negative as well. Okay, just for fun, and let's say we add two positive numbers, just for fun, and we use that rule. We say we add their absolute value, and whether inside the absolute value sign, whether they are positive or negative, the result always come to positive. So it's be 2 plus 5, and 2 plus 5 is 7. Then consider the sign. Back into this original questions, there are two positive numbers, so our final result will be positive number. Just positive is 7. Great. And what about if I want to add a different types of numbers? Because right now we add two negative numbers together or two positive numbers. What about I want to add a positive numbers and a negative number together. How about this time? Well, let's figure out by firstly just look at this graph. For 4, number 4, remember because that's a positive, so we're gonna move from 0 to the right. And we start from 0. We move 4 steps because that number is 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And from that, we're not done yet. We have a negative numbers. And just negative number means we gotta move to the left. So start where we are right now. We move 2 steps to the left. So 1, 2. And here is our final destination. And it corresponds to this number is 2. So 4 plus -2 is 2. And always, I just want to teach you a quicker way. Just want to save you some times. So we have this rule. Adding integers with the different signs. If we have a positive number, we add a different sign. We add -1. Where we have -5 plus 2. They are different sign. And for this rule, it says subtract their absolute value. Subtract their absolute values. This is the first step. And then always we have to consider the sign. And the sign will be the same as the larger number. And let me show you algebraically. If I have a number is a negative number, let's say negative 6 plus 2. So we can tell directly that they are different sign, right? One is negative and one is positive. And the rule says we gotta subtract their absolute values. But here I wanna tell you more about it. When you see there are different sign, then what you gotta do is you don't care about this sign this time, right? You only care about 6 and 2. Yeah, 6 and 2, which one is larger? So obviously it's just 6, right? Then we will use absolute value of a negative 6 minus absolute value of 2. Then absolute value of a negative 6 is just 6, positive 6, and then minus 2. And 6 minus 2 will be 4. But don't forget, you always have to consider the sign, whether it's positive or negative. And the rule says if we have this 6 and 2, and 6 is larger than 2, then this 6 is negative right now. So we gotta keep the same sign, right? We gotta add negative at the final result. That's the thought process. Let's see another one. Let's say we have 4 plus negative 12. And firstly, you don't care about this sign right here. You only care about the 4 and 12. Which one is larger? Obviously 12. So you're gonna use absolute value of negative 12 minus absolute value of 4. Then absolute value of a negative 12 is positive 12 minus 4. And 12 minus 4 is 8. And then we're gonna consider the sign because 12 is larger than 4, but 12 is negative here. We have to consider this negative sign, so we gotta put the negative sign at the end. Okay, so next I wanna give you some new terms to learn. Opposite means the same number but different signs. If I say the question says 6, but I want you to find the opposite of it. So its opposite would be negative 6, right? This is the answer. And what about I give you negative 3? The answer will be 3 because that's the opposite. There's different signs. And for opposite, it can also be like for different things. Like if I give you like left, the opposite of left is right. Okay. Now for additive inverse, is a number and is opposite. So there will be two things right now. Let's say I have a number and there is opposite. Is negative 10. And what about if I want to add these two numbers together? What do we get? Let's see, 10 plus negative 10, just 0. And you can approach that through this number line. Let's say it's 0, so always move to the right because this is 10, it's positive 10. We gotta move right to 10 steps. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And negative 10 means we gotta move to the left by same steps, just move back, right? So you just come back to this 0 again, so you just 0. That's how you can tell through this graph. Okay, most importantly is that you're gonna encounter with is we learn how to add two numbers with different signs or same signs? What about we want to add three or more numbers together and it might be different signs? And let's say I have 8 and plus -2 and plus -8. There are multiple ways to solve this expression, and I'm going to show you two ways. One is we just learn the additive inverse. Go back to see additive inverse. If they are numbers and they are opposite with each other, so we add it together, they will be 0. And for this question, we see there's 8 and a -8. And if we add them together, they will be 0, right? And then 0 plus -2 is -2, right? So let's do that. I want to remind you one property is A plus B equals B plus A. It doesn't matter if we switch the position between these two numbers, it's the same result. So it will be 8 plus -8 plus -2. And 8 plus -8 will be 0. We just learned that. And 0 plus -2 will be just -2. Okay, great. But we have another method. Let me show you. Let's say you don't care about we just switch the position or not. You don't care about the opposite or the additive inverse. You just want to follow the order of operation. You just want to calculate from left to right. That's okay. That's great. And what you gotta do is to add the first two numbers together by using what we learned previously, right? And we leave the third number alone for this time. So we see there's a positive number and a negative number. They're different sign. Then we gotta subtract their absolute values. But which one goes first? We don't care about the sign here right now. We only care about 8 and 2. So 8 is greater than 2. So we're gonna use absolute value of 8 minus absolute value of -2. And we just leave this -a for now alone. And absolute value of a is 8 minus absolute value of a -2 is 2. Then we just copy down this -8. And 8 minus 2 is 6. Then don't forget the sign. We always have to consider the sign here. Here is positive. This is a larger number, so a is greater than 2. But 8 is positive number, so we just keep this 6 positive. It's the same sign, right? Then we will copy down -8. Now, same step. We first observe the number and we don't care about the sign here. 8 and 6. So 8 is greater than 6. So we're going to use absolute value of -8 minus absolute value of a 6. Then 8 minus 6 is 2. But don't forget we have to consider the sign. Because a is greater than 6, and because we don't care about the sign here right now, but this time when we see this 8, there's also a negative sign right now. Then this time we gotta consider the negative sign, and we put the negative sign at the end. So we have the same answer. You might think that you have to write it multiple times or multiple steps for this second method, but if you're comfortable with this and you do a lot of practice on this kind of a problem, you don't have to write these steps after all, because you can just calculate it mentally, and it's your choice to whether use this method or this method. It's your choice. Just give you two way of thinking it.